So, top five most intriguing Jaguars. Now, I'll admit, last year this video would have been a lot harder to make because there were really so many unknowns with the Jaguars. There were so many new additions through the draft, through free agency. We had the awful 2021 season where a lot of players probably looked a lot worse than they really were. And, you had a new coaching staff. There were just so many question marks and way more just questions than answers. But this year is different. We saw the team play really well last year. We saw the playoff run. We saw what, some of these guys look like at their best. And look, going into this season, we are AFC South favorites right now, long and away. I mean, I went through the Vegas odds in a couple of videos ago. We are, when it comes to the gap between first place and second place, the Jaguars in the NFL are perceived to have the biggest gap between the first place Jaguars, and it's generally the second place Titans. So, but there is still a lot of intrigue with the Jaguars. I mean, year to year, unless you're just going to be awful, there really is no team that's just not intriguing. And, right now as Jags fans, we've been waiting so long for this moment where we went into a year saying, hey, we should be pretty good. We're not going into this year being like, oh, you want the Jags to go 8-8? Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're way too optimistic. Now we're like, okay, why don't we go out there and go 12-5 or 11-6? It's a different year, and it's really, really exciting. So with this one, I'm going to go over my top five most intriguing Jaguars going into the 2023 season with one caveat. I'm taking Trevor Lawrence off of the list. Look, until the end of time, Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, will always be the number one most intriguing player going into the next year. Especially if he starts having like MVP type seasons. And, he'll always be the focal point because we finally have a quarterback in Jacksonville. But I think it's too much of a softball to just put Trevor Lawrence on this list. So I'm taking him out for the sake of this one here. So coming in at number 5, this may surprise some people, but I have Jordan Smith. Now, Jordan Smith, a lot of people, one thing that I'm not shy about saying is that I'm pretty concerned about the Jaguars pass rush going into this season. When you look at last year, 2 out of our 3 top sack guys are not on the Jaguars anymore. That is current free agent Dwan Smoot and current Tennessee Titan Arden Key are both not on the Jaguars. So that leaves a bunch of players that kind of need to step up. And when you look at it, the Jaguars really did not replace those guys with anybody outside of like draft picks and maybe Jordan Smith coming back off of injury. So when you look at the Jaguars pass rush, we're relying on a bunch of guys to take big leaps. We're waiting for Josh Allen to really have that premier year where he had double-digit sacks his rookie season, but hasn't had double-digit sacks since. We're hoping Travon Walker, former number 1 pick, goes out there and takes the next step. And outside of that, there's just not a lot of guys right now when it comes to pure pass rushing help. So we're going to have to rely on, really some guys who take monster next steps. And I know I say, look, I'm worried about the Jaguars pass rush. And people go, oh, what about Jordan Smith? What about Jordan Smith? Well, let me tell you guys a little bit about Jordan Smith if you don't really know much about him. He was a 4th-round pick in the legendary 2021 NFL draft for the Jaguars. He was actually the final draft pick from the Jalen Ramsey trade. He was at the University of Florida. He got suspended his redshirt freshman year, and then he went on to play at Butler Community College before transferring over to UAB, where he was a first-team All-Conference USA player. And after his rookie year, he actually tore his ACL in OTAs. So not really much that we've seen from him. And when you look at his rookie year, he only played in 2 games and has recorded a total of 1 tackle. So and also when you look at him right now, he's at OTAs playing and everything right now, but he still has a knee brace on, and he says that he's at 80%. So a year after tearing his ACL, he's only at 80%. That's a little concerning to me because usually you're a little bit further along in that process by this point. But when you look at everything, what is Jordan Smith right now? Until Jordan Smith proves that he's anything in the NFL, until he proves that he's more than a 2-game, 1-tackle guy, he is just a 2-game, 1-tackle guy. I'm not going to say we're good at pass rush and say we have Jordan Smith. You know what I mean? I still think the Jaguars have some stuff to do when it comes to going out there and, maybe signing a veteran pass rusher to a 1-year deal. But with Jordan Smith, he's intriguing because he does have, a lot of the intangibles that you want in a pass rusher, and he does have a lot of potential. I mean, he killed it at UAB. He was a big-time recruit over to the University of Florida, and when you look at it, he was a part of a pretty good draft class when it comes to the Jaguars 2021 draft class with Trevor Lawrence, ETN, Andre Sisco. So there's maybe some room for him to carve himself out a pretty good role for the Jaguars, but we'll keep an eye on him going forward. Now, number 4, I have Jaguars left tackle Walker Little. Now, he's going into his 3rd season as a Jaguar, another guy from the 2021 NFL draft. However, he has not been a starter to begin a season up until this year. Look, he's going to start the year out as the starting left tackle for the Jaguars, with Cam Robinson being out with an injury, or not an injury, but actually Cam Robinson being suspended. So the big reason why I have him on this list is when Cam Robinson comes back, what does Walker Little do? He has been cross-training at left guard a little bit, so there's a good chance that when Cam Robinson comes back, Cam Robinson goes back to left tackle, and then Walker Little slides into left guard. But what if Walker Little is just incredible? Last year he might have been better, arguably better than Cam Robinson. And look, if he's out there playing like a top 5 left tackle, you don't bump him inside because Cam Robinson is coming back from injury. You figure out a way to get your 5 best offensive linemen on the field. And if Cam Robinson is one of your top 5 guys, he's going to be playing out there, but maybe Cam Robinson is the guy to play left guard. A lot of people, when they forecast it, they don't see Cam Robinson as a long-term guy on this team with really, really high 2024 cap hit, which I believe it's somewhere between $15 to $20 million you can save by cutting him. So with drafting Anton Harrison to play right tackle and with Walker Little still at that cheap contract to play left tackle, you got to think that Cam Robinson might be on his way out, and the Jaguars will go with Walker Little going forward. But I'm interested to see his potential because he does seem like a really good player. And, right tackle may not have been his thing, but we could have a good player there. Then when Cam Robinson comes back from suspension, which we still don't have the amount of games that Cam Robinson will be missing. I looked it up today, and look, we figured out right before the draft that he was suspended, and that was almost 2 months ago, and we still don't have a number. A lot of people are saying it's going to be anywhere between 4 to 8 games, most likely 6, but we still don't really know. So we will see. Now, number 3 on this list, I have tight end Brenton Strange. Now, Brenton Strange was a 2nd-round pick. Sometimes I look back at the 2023 draft. I'm like, who do we take in the 2nd round? Oh, yeah, it was Brenton Strange, a tight end from Penn State. Now, it really intrigues me because, look, he was a guy that Doug Peterson really, really likes. And if there's anybody who I trust to scout a tight end, it's going to be Doug Peterson. And look, the last time Doug Peterson and his team drafted a tight end was in 2018, where they drafted Dallas Goedert in the 2nd round. So could that be some good foreshadowing about a potential great tight end that the Jaguars may have? I mean, we've been just starved for great tight ends over here. We brought in Evan Ingram, and he did great last year on a 1-year deal, but he's just on a franchise tag. We are still not committed to him long-term. I believe Ingram has until July 15th to be able to sign a long-term deal with the Jaguars. But at the moment, Evan Ingram's a rental. And at the moment, Brenton Strange is a big-time we invested some good capital in him, and he's going to be cheap labor for the next 4 years. So I imagine that the Jaguars have a role carved out for him. Now, I don't know how involved he will be in the passing game. Maybe he's more of a run blocker. But yeah, the Jaguars are definitely going to have a role for him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have drafted him so high. And look, I just want to see some good tight end play from the Jaguars. Now, number 2, I have the aforementioned Travon Walker. Look, I think that Travon Walker probably has the most pressure of any player on the Jaguars because, look, when you look at the 2021 NFL draft, He was a number 1 overall player taken. Trent Baalke looked at Travon Walker and said, "You are the best football player in this draft. We're taking you here." And we drafted him with the caveat that, look, he was first overall pick over Aiden Hutchinson, over Sauce Gardner, over Chris Olave, over everybody. And we took him with a caveat that his first year may not be very good because he did not play the position that we want him to play at Georgia. At Georgia, he was just all over the place. He didn't have a true role, but for the Jaguars, he was going to be, in that outside linebacker role. And he is going to be a guy that eventually gets a lot of pressure on the quarterback. I mean, last year he was decent in the run game, but he didn't really have any pass rushing moves. He had the bull rush move where he just relied on his power, and he didn't come up with many sacks. But this is the offseason where we said, okay, he's going to take an offseason. He's going to develop his pass rushing moves to be great. Now, we don't know how great it is. We won't really know until probably when the season starts. We might see some hints of it in training camp or in preseason, but what do you really learn in that? We're going to really figure out in the regular season, and we hope that he can make some strides because, look, he needs to be, if our pass rush is going to be good, he's going to have to play a monumental role. I mean, look, like I said, we invested in the number 1 pick in him. He needs to work out. If he just turns into a good run stopping guy, he's going to be a waste of a draft pick. Okay. Especially when you passed up Aiden Hutchinson, like I said, Sauce Gardner. We need him to get pressure on the quarterback. We need him to develop some pass rushing moves. And, I have no doubt that he loves the game of football. He needs to clean up his act a little bit when it comes to on the field. He had some dumb personal foul penalties last year. Can't be doing that. It will cost you games. But yeah, he's a guy that I'm really interested in seeing playing, and hopefully he lives out to that number 1 overall pick potential. Now, number 1 on this list, guy I'm really, really excited for is wide receiver Calvin Ridley. Now, some free agents that the Jaguars have brought in here, we've signed some great wide receivers in free agency. I mean, we signed Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardell. But when we signed those guys, they were pretty much nobodies. Nobody really knew them when the Jaguars signed them. We also signed Torrey Holt when he was at the last year of his career after he had all of his best years behind him. But Calvin Ridley is, when it comes to signing actually, we didn't even sign it. We traded for him, but he still feels like a free agent. But when it comes to just being able to bring in a wide receiver that is a proven wide receiver right in their prime, Calvin Ridley is that dude. And look, he looks awesome right now. And look, if you read his Players Tribune letter, you can tell he's ready. If you listen to him talk to the media, you can tell he's ready. When you watch him at training camp, when it comes to his footwork skills, he looks ready, man, and he loves football. And he is a guy that just had to step away from the field for, about a year and a half, 2 years. And look, he is ready to get back on it. He wants to make a name for himself. He wants to go out there and win football games. It was crazy when he had his first press conference with the Jaguars. He said, look, after I got traded to the Jaguars, watched them every week. And he said that he watched every play about like 4 or 5 times from the Jaguars. Look, he was studying the Jags before he was on the team, trying to see what kind of role he would have in this offense. And he got to be a Jags fan during one of the most fun times in my fandom. I mean, we were like, I think 2-5 when the Jaguars traded for him. And then look what happened. You know what I mean? Went on that crazy run. And I can imagine he just wanted to be a part of it. And, when you look at really the last like 5 years, when Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen took a major leap. When Burrow got Chase, he took a major leap. When Tua got Tyreek Hill, he took a major leap. So history shows that when you bring in a top 5 to 10 wide receiver, you even look at Jalen Hurts when he got A.J. Brown. When you bring in these dominant playmakers, quarterback's not going to complain, man. Quarterback should be able to take that next step. And then, look, Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley should be able to compete with any of those duos when we're ranking wide receiver quarterback duos. And, when it comes to the history of this franchise, best wide receiver duos, you look at Mark Brunell, Jimmy Smith. Fantasy football wise, you look at Blake Bortles, Allen Robinson. Of course, not real football, but when you look at historically, Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley might turn into the best quarterback wide receiver duo this franchise has ever seen. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what Calvin Ridley brings. I know he's hungry. I know I'm hungry to watch him play. I'm just ready for some Jaguars football, man. I feel like it's been too long. We're in June, approaching dead season, and it's going to be some fun football this year, man. I can't wait for it. Thanks for watching the video. Go Jags.